The garden is growing beautifully, and I want it to stay that way. So there's 4 things that I have swirling around in my head as I walk through and admire the beautiful plants. So come on into the garden with me, and I'll show you all the things that I do through my daily walk to make sure that my garden continues to grow beautifully.
All I have needs, I have not provided.
The first thing that I have on my mind is insects and pests. There's good insects and there's bad insects. And I hate when the stink bugs come in after my tomatoes. And the first ones came yesterday. So I'm glad I have the netting up already. If you don't have netting around your tomatoes and they haven't started blooming yet, get them covered with the netting. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can get netting. And I suggest that you buy it by the bolt and in the widest width that you can. I have a couple of different videos that'll show you exactly what I mean and why I keep the netting around the tomatoes. The other pests that I'm looking for are slugs and snails. These boards serve a dual purpose. First of all, it keeps the netting right flush with the soil. If you don't have it flush with the soil, the stink bugs will crawl up underneath and get into your tomatoes anyway. And the other purpose is boards make a great trap for snails and slugs. Okay, so I have a slug right here and a snail right there. And what have I got? Very simple. This is salt with rice mixed in there. The rice keeps the salt from sticking together. I come out to the garden with my salt shaker in hand. Now, the snails don't like the salt. The snails are easy to crush. So either way, sprinkle them with salt or step on them. This here is a slug. Look, he knows he's been exposed. He's trying to get away. Just give him a good sprinkle of salt. And what it does is make them lose their mucus somehow or other. And they just shrivel up and die. I like to turn them over and give them another good sprinkle, though it's not necessary. And I just leave him there. He'll become fertilizer for the soil. One of the easiest ways that I attract the good insects into my garden is I let mustard plants bolt every year. The flowers are beautiful and the bees and pollinators love them, and here they come. Once the flowers are done, they make these seed pods and then they disperse those seeds all over my garden, and next fall they come up. I don't know how that works, but they know when to come up. And then I just transplant a few and grow it all over again. I do the same thing with lettuce and arugula, but I will gather those seeds and keep them in the freezer until I plant them next fall. This is the work of a slug. What they do is they'll come along and they'll just eat right up the stems. If it was a cutworm, they would cut off the bottom, but usually cutworms like to attack the plant as they're sprouting. Another possibility here is a grasshopper, and I just was able to catch one, and I stepped on it. So grasshoppers are a little bit harder to catch, but that is one thing that I'm looking for in the beans. The next thing that I'm looking for as I go through the garden is disease. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we had a whole lot of rain that lasted off and on for several days. And what happens with bean plants is they get rust. And once rust settles into your beans or peas, it'll just take over your whole plant within a few days. So this is sulfur powder. It is wettable. And what you do is you just sprinkle it right over the top of your plants. And if you see some leaves up underneath that have been affected, then you sprinkle that too. Just apply it very, very lightly. Right now, these plants are beautiful. And what I'm doing with the sulfur is just a preventative measure. I live in Florida and, well, it's damp here all the time. So this is just to keep them healthy. Now, I just watered last night, and so I'm not going to be washing this off anytime soon. It'll probably be a couple more days before I water again. But as a preventative, I'm just sprinkling it very, very lightly. This is cranberry beans on that side and Cherokee Trail of Tears on this side. These are zipper peas. So I do see a little bit of rust on the bottom of these leaves. So this will help keep it from spreading. All the new growth will be just fine. I don't see any disease in the corn or the tomatoes, so I don't need to do anything there. One thing that is very disease prone at this time of year is squash. I've decided that I'm not going to grow squash in the springtime anymore, because by the time they get big and start producing the squash, then now we've headed into some rainy days and it just invites the powdery mildew. You can keep the powdery mildew at bay, and I have a video about how to do that naturally. But you've got to stay on it, sometimes on a daily basis. You've got to be out there spraying those plants every single day. And I've just decided fall is a better time to grow squash and cucumbers, because while I may have pests during that time, for me, there's no disease during that time. So it just makes it a little easier for me. And I'm okay to wait until until fall to get my squash. These are black-eyed peas on this side with a cilantro that has bolted, and I will be gathering the seeds from those when they are ripe. And I have two different kinds of green beans on this side. So both your peas and your beans benefit from this really light sprinkle of sulfur. And these plants are beautiful. They're not showing any disease. There's no rust except on the very bottom, but you can see that there's no rust on the top of these plants, because I treated them as soon as I saw the rust coming up on them a couple of weeks ago. And all this new growth is just gorgeous. In a previous video, I showed you how the plants were starting to come out with these cupped leaves. But see here, the new growth is beautiful. So the sulfur has really helped with that. That's all it needed. I didn't fertilize these. I didn't do anything else. The next thing to check for is so easy. You need to know if you need to water. So just stick your finger down to the first knuckle, and that's your test. Is it damp? Then leave it alone. You don't want to overwater your soil. If it's dry, then go ahead and water. Now, I keep mulch around my peas and my beans, but not around my tomatoes or corn. So I may have to come back and water those more often than I water my peas and beans. If you overwater anything, it's going to invite disease to come. So just wait until the soil is dry before you water again. The fourth thing that I'm checking for is the health of my plant. Do they need fertilizing? Corn is a very heavy feeder, and you might notice that some of the corn is growing unevenly compared to others. I've got a really big one here and a small one there. That's kind of typical of my garden. That's not really what you're looking for. You're looking right at the plant itself, regardless of how big they are. Stunted growth is one sign that it needs fertilizing, but I go over all of that in another video that I've already done, and I'll leave that at the end of the video so you can click right over to it and you can see what signs to look for in all of your vegetable plants to determine whether they need fertilizing or not. In the last video, I showed you how to make a fertilizer that is rich in nitrogen. These corn plants have responded quite well to that. And now I'm just going to fertilize them with an all-purpose fertilizer, and I want to show you what I do, and it's free. This fertilizer is absolutely free. That's great. Not only is it free, but the plants respond to it amazingly. I can't quite figure out why, but it works. So what you're going to do is when your plants are all done giving you the vegetables that you want from it, then you take the green matter and you stuff your bucket as full as you can, and then add water. Then you're going to put the lid back on it because you don't want to breed mosquitoes, and you just forget it for, I leave mine 4 to 6 months. And well, at first, if the lid isn't on there real good, well, it's going to smell pretty bad. But now that there's been several months gone by, it only smells a bit earthy. So I'm going to give it, I've already fished out most of what's left of the green material. I'm going to add it to that compost right there. And then I'm just going to dip out. So I'm just going to dip out, oh, I don't know, maybe a quart, and put it into this bucket. And then I'm going to fill this bucket all the way to the top and use that to fertilize my corn. A couple of weeks ago, I dug a trench right down the middle of these beds so that if there's any runoff from the liquid fertilizer, it will not run out into the pathways. So I've still got a bit of a trench there, and that's where I'm going to pour this. Now, anytime that you're adding liquid fertilizer to the soil, your soil actually needs to be damp to begin with, just so it won't run off. But even just pouring this down right through the middle, the roots of that corn will look for the fertilizer or wherever the soil is rich. Whenever you pull up your corn this year, take a look at where the roots went. So 1 bucket per bed here. I have just enough of this weed water to give the tomato plants a little boost. Now, you don't want to leave the netting up very long because the stink bugs are very persistent. So those 4 things don't have to take a long time. Just set aside a few minutes every day to come out to your garden. So you're going to look for the bad insects. You're going to be looking for disease. You'll check to see if your garden needs water, and you'll check to see if any of your plants are telling you that they need fertilizing. Now, I do have that video. It should show up right here about how to tell what kind of fertilizer that your plants need. It's super easy and it comes with a free chart. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your valuable time. Give it a green thumbs up, and you know it would be wonderful if you would subscribe. I have over 200 videos and I think they might help you.